Hello everyone, this is Sylwia for Radio Cenzura in Kaleidoscope of Inspiration. Today I'm talking to Jacquie Burgess, the herbalist and wise woman, about her experience, life experience really, because it's all connected with nature and healing of plants. Welcome you, Jacquie. How are you today?
I'm great, Sylwia. It's really lovely to talk to you. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, I'm
Can you
good.
say maybe a few words about yourself?
Yes, I'll try. Yes, you can probably tell from my accent, I grew up in England, but I've lived in Ireland now for half my life, almost for the last 30 years. And I work here mostly as a herbalist, although when I arrived, I was already a trained psychotherapist, which I did for work here as well. And I did psychotherapy body work, massage and that kind of thing. So that's been my kind of career path since being in Ireland. And before that, I was a designer and publisher as well, professionally, and I continue to paint and draw as well as part of my joy, I suppose. Not necessarily very professionally, although I do some design still, but because I love it, because it's one of my creative ways of expressing myself. But that's what I do, and I keep bees, and I live in a very untidy, wild, old Irish house and garden in the country here in County Carlow, and I suppose I live my joy really, which is to be in nature and to be among the plants, and to kind of bridge the gap between the wild and the tamed in ourselves and in life, really. So that's I think all I can say really about myself at this particular stage of my life.
This sounds very, very interesting. Like your journey sounds very fascinating from really something which sounds for me more career orientated, corporate, than to psychotherapy, than to herbalism. So I would like to know like about the wisdom of plants. What leads you to become the herbalist and like connecting closer to nature, and what is your view on that subject?
Well, I think when I came here, because I came from England and because I came at a time when it was a very painful and difficult time where a lot of secrets were emerging in Ireland. It was the time when all the beginnings of the discussion of clerical abuse and all of that was emerging in Ireland. And as a psychotherapist, because I was a blow-in, because I was from England, and therefore in Ireland there's this thing, because it's such a small population, and there's a feeling that everybody knows each other, and that even though, of course, as a psychotherapist, that your confidentiality is absolutely key, but the person who might come doesn't, especially from a sort of country Irish background, wouldn't necessarily assume that, because they're so used to having to kind of guard privacy with such care. But so the bottom line was, when I arrived, I was in great demand, because there was this assumption that, well, she's a blow-in and she doesn't know anybody, so I could talk to her safely. And because I lived a little bit off the beaten track, in the sense that not on the main road here, and so it was very private. So I got a lot of clients who came to me who were disclosing for the first time, sometimes utterly heartbreaking abuse that they've been holding on to, all their lives, and some of them were very elderly. because it was coming out in the media and so on. And they were sort of realizing, perhaps for the first time too, that this was not normal, that this was, this was something that they needed to talk about. So anyway, so that's how it sort of started here. And I was also working with crystals, because I'd written a couple of books about crystal healing as well. So I was doing that as well with clients in Dublin. But here, anyway, my practice in psychotherapy was very busy. But I became more and more conscious of the fact, as well as the body work, which was sometimes very relevant and important, where it was, where it was acceptable. But as well as that, I wanted a physical medicine to offer. Because I live in a place that's full of glorious, wild green life here. I mean, really beautiful. It's unsprayed. It's been, well, I've never sprayed anything, with any pesticides or any chemicals, and it hadn't been before I came. So it was a truly clean space, if you like, in nature. Yes. And so I was particularly inspired. I actually grew up on a farm, and so I did have a sort of nature background, but had lived a long time in London as well in between. So I suppose it became the most natural thing in the world. And actually a very good friend of mine who at the time was running the health shop in Rathmines had decided that she was going to train in herbal medicine, and that there was a course that had started in Portlaoise at the time, and that she had just applied, and we met, and she told me about it, and something in my heart just leapt, and I said, that's what I need to do, So it was probably I don't know, it was probably about 15 years ago now, no more probably. Anyway, I don't know, but something like that, and 16 maybe years ago. That I qualified, so maybe nearly 20 years ago. But anyway, she told me about it, and I applied as well, and I managed to get in sort of by a squeak, because they were just about to start the course, and anyway they accepted me, and it was like learning about the plants and working with the plants was like coming home to me. It was wow. It was a really powerful experience, and in tandem with doing that rather academic course, which was very good, but it was very book learning based. I also worked with a beautiful, very hands-on herbalist, wise woman herbalist called Gina McGarry, and I trained with her at the same time, and that was a much more getting your hands into the soil and communicating with the plants, and working with the plant spirit medicine, and working with all the energies of the plants, which I found that was real homecoming for me. And so there was this beautiful kind of transition for me of continuing to do the therapy and so on, but also being able to offer the plant wisdom as part and parcel, because we are physical beings and we're manifesting, our lives in a physical way. And there was something absolutely beautiful about the interaction with our plant allies and our plant friends, and wise ones, my goodness, so wise, that really seemed to bridge a very needed gap, really, between what it is to be human, and not to be, there's I suppose maybe it's me, but there is a tendency, you can kind of get too stuck in your head, if you know what I mean. And so working with the body, working with the digestion and the actual, taking in plant material as well, working with the body work, and working with the mind and soul, seemed to me to be an integrating of therapeutic processes that, of course, reflect very much on ourselves. I think, I think
absolutely
I can't separate myself and my own journey from what I do, in the sense that I think we always choose to do what we need for ourselves as well. So yes. So with I mean, not being, I mean, you know, I don't want to be kind of falsely humble or anything, but at the same time, it genuinely is true that whenever I've, you know, chosen to follow a path, it's because it's also personal. It's, you know, it's part of my healing process, and that's ongoing,
Yeah.
and I don't suppose it's going to stop anytime soon. But you know, that's always ongoing. But that's how I came to the plants, and it was genuinely like meeting. It was like
Old friends.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. You took the words exactly. It was like meeting old friends.
Yeah.
It was like meeting your soul family. You know,
Exactly.
in the most beautiful way, and opening to the wisdom of that. You know, there's so much wisdom.
So much wisdom,
in the unspoken. It's an energetic exchange. It's an awareness of, you know, plants are miraculous. You know, people think, oh, you know, it's just a tree, it's just a plant, and they only see the physical. But of course, you know, trees, plants, they live on light. You know, it's, you know, they are constantly transforming and miraculously kind of doing this incredible exchange between the inner and the outer, the light and manifestation. And so they have that wisdom in the present moment that we've been kind of separated from so much.
And they've been here first as well.
Sorry?
They've been here first as well, before us.
Absolutely. But they constantly do this dance, you know. Absolutely, yes. And they have so much wisdom. It's like, it was the same. I feel that about a lot about the stones and the crystals as well, because they, I believe, are very much living beings as well. But they just function on a time scale that's almost unimaginable for us.
Yes.
You know? You can be holding a crystal that's kind of 5 million years old, and, you know, just imagine what that life experience is. You know, it's kind of, you know, we are just a blink of an eye, you know, compared to that. But there is so much beauty in those kind of exchanges, and so much. There's so much gift in it, really, in things that people take for granted because they no longer see it somehow. They no longer are encouraged to experience it in ordinary life, which is I think, thankfully, does seem to be changing at last. Again, you know, back to ways of more connection a little bit. But I suppose at a critical time now, where we seem to be at a crossroads between, is everything going to be AI, or is or are we going to actually are we going, you know, and I mean, it's absolutely fine, I think, with tools that genuinely are tools, and that we can, you know, it's a bit like systems, which I've got a thing about systems, because systems seem to take on a life of their own, and human beings who are a bit inclined to be lazy, I think, go, oh, this is great, fine, and then very soon they forget that in fact what they're doing is that it's an entity in its own right, and that the human is a slave to the system, rather than the system working for the human as something that is helping to support life, and it sort of goes the other way around. And I think that's probably a real risk with things like AI, and so we have to be jolly awake, you know, really, that's so English to say, we have to be very awake, to try and be aware of those pitfalls, and we're right on the precipice at the moment, I think, of possibility, and beautiful possibility, that I care about that passionately. You know, I feel that you know, as best we can, God knows we can't, you know, always do, we feel we can't do enough, but to just keep on reintroducing people to the joy and the simplicity of connection, you know, and how important it is that we are nature. We really are nature. Absolutely. We are constantly manifesting our own particular unique way. You know, you know, you're beautiful Sylwia, I'm Jacquie, we're manifesting ourselves in our unique little blueprint, but we're one as well, you know, we're part of all of it. And there's no separation, you know, no separation. So I think, yeah,
it's so beautiful. Like, yeah, I agree 100% with everything what you're saying, and from the heart, and your journey is very interesting. And I'm actually I'm not in Ireland, I'm in Poland at the moment. And here it's like my grandparents' house used to belong to my grandparents, and he was beekeeper. And the knowledge of herb and nature, it was very embedded in me, and I kind of feel that strongly, and that connection. And you speaking especially about that wonderful connection we have, and we grow. Even animals, dogs and cats, everybody who have dog and cat knows they're picking up some plants and herbs if they need them. So it's something very natural, I think, for us, but so forgotten, that connection to wisdom of plants, medicine. Not only now, it's very trendy to speak about plant medicine in the sense of psychedelics, but I think it's almost like a trend now. But like with any plants, with any herbs, and they really healers, you know, that's what they have a healings, the medicines, like whatever pharmacology, it's just tricking the symptoms of, you know, you can have a painkiller or something, and with herbs, they really work on a different level, and help with lots of things. But like you said, it's holistic, and the fact you have, you know, all that journey coming to that point, it's to connection with plants and cooperating all your knowledge with psychotherapy, psychology, empathy, working with crystals to that, it's just wonderful. Yeah, it's very interesting. And yeah, you are also beekeeper. Maybe you talk about bees as well, and because it's it's funny, because my grandfather just behind me, there used to be a beehives. Like my aunt, I have no interest with them, but if I will ever live there, I probably will keep bees because they are so important. Maybe you talk about bees a little now. You can.
Well, I don't know what to say about bees. They're completely magical. I truly love my bees. They are the lovers of plants. I mean, literally, you know, they are the intermediaries. You know, they fertilize the plants. They are essential to life as we understand it, really. But they are full of magic and wisdom. And well, if you've got time, I'll tell you a funny story, because how I got them. One Sunday morning, I went out because I needed, I don't know, something in the supermarket in Tullow here. It was Aldi, in fact, and I went in, and I, you know, was in the first aisle of the thing, and there was this elderly man. I suspect he was about my age, but anyway, this is how I perceive things. This elderly man was standing in the aisle, scratching his head and muttering to himself. And being a friendly person, I said, you know, can I help? And he was staring at the porridge oats on the thing, and he was saying, oh, you know, it's hopeless. They don't have them anymore. They're too expensive and whatever. And I went, well, those ones are great, you know, pointing at probably the organic ones. And he said, no, it's for my ducks, and it's for my chickens, and it's for my this, that, and the other. And he said, that's just too expensive. Anyway, we started talking, and he looks at me for a while, sort of thoughtfully and silently. And he says, what do you think about bees? And so I say, oh, well, I don't know what I think about bees, really, except, you know, they're obviously marvelous, useful and everything. My grandfather used to keep bees. So I said, well, my grandfather used to keep bees. So you know, that's I don't really have any other thoughts about bees. And he said, well, you're a woman. I can see you're a woman who should have bees. And so I was kind of caught between being kind of flattered, as you are, when somebody tells you, they can see you need to have something. And he says, I'm going to give you bees. And I said, oh, he said, what do you think about that? And I said, well, I suppose I feel a bit nervous about it. I don't know whether I'd be able to handle it. And he said, don't be stupid. Of course you'd be able to handle it. You're a woman who needs bees. I've never given anybody bees before, but you're going to have bees. And so anyway, he was a force to be reckoned with. This man was called Danny, who's sadly passed now. And he had a mouth on him like, I don't know, like I'd never heard before. I mean, it was colourful, to say the least, and extremely rude, but wonderful in its way. And anyway, so Danny then took me under his wing with a fierceness that was absolutely, you couldn't refuse. And he came and he met Herbie, my husband, who passed about beginning of the year, but he came and met Herbie in a sort of respectable way. And Herbie was highly entertained by all this, and Danny then proceeded to kind of take over my life for a while, and arrived with, he made me go and buy the kit for making up hives and things, which I did, and he then arrived, with a whole lot of bees, and got me set up with my first hive of bees, and that was I'm trying to think when it was. It was. Oh gosh, it was about 13 years ago. I know, 12 or 13 years ago. Yes, and I've had bees ever since. I've got 4 hives at the bottom of the garden, and I absolutely love them. And Danny was an amazing influence in my life for a sadly too short a time. He'd worked on the buildings forever in London, and had drink issues, and as commonly, and bless his heart, had given up drinking towards the end of his life because he rescued animals. He was a very kind-hearted, beautiful human being, actually, very beautiful human being. Anyway, he rescued animals and things, and he had gone on a blinder, as was his wont, one weekend, and had woken up with these kind of very hungry dogs and cats and everything gathered round him worriedly, because he passed out. And anyway, he said from that moment onwards, he realized that he just absolutely had to stop. And to his great credit, oh my goodness, to his great credit, he really did. He stopped that moment and never drank again. But sadly, it was too late, and he did die only about 18 months after I met him. Suddenly dropped dead with a heart attack. But to his great credit, had taken a drink for about 2 years before he died, and had rescued all these creatures, and had kept his bees, and had kept his ducks, and had kept all these different creatures who he loved very much. And so he was a sort of rather a miraculous, kind of extraordinary, almost magical, kind of trickster figure in my life, really, who brought me the bees. So there's sort of magic in these things, because it was such a chance encounter, and it changed my life, actually, because it brought the bees, and the bees fertilized the garden and the herbs, and the garden is so fertile now. I mean, it's extraordinary, really. You can practically see the energy in the garden. It sort of vibrates with it, and you will know from your background as well with the bees and nature that it has a kind of profound effect on you at a very deep level. It feels it's another amazing way of connecting. I mean, just listening to the hum of the bees,
yes,
is something that brings you right back into something pre-verbal, into some sort of inner awareness of what it is to be alive, really, I suppose. I mean, I was going to say what it is to be human, but it's beyond that. It's what it is to
Absolutely.
what it is to be, you know. It's a pun, but anyway. But it's so the bees for me are magical, and they, of course, they produce beautiful honey, which is such a gift and so precious, and so full of goodness as well. So between the herbs and, you know, you mentioned, you know, the current trend for psychedelics and things, which is, you know, the only problem with that, and I'm not being, I hope I'm not being judgmental or prudish, it's just my own feeling, I suppose, about that, is that it can be, and not always, but it can be a bit of a kind of shortcut to, you know, instant enlightenment kind of thing, which kind of, it's awful to say it, and perhaps I'm wrong. I don't know. I think there can be instant enlightenment, but I don't know that. I think with plant spirits, there has to be such a deep kind of connection
to everything. Yes,
respect. And so I suppose how I feel anyway about plant medicine that isn't indigenous, and, you know, I'm coming from the British Isles, which, and you know, anyway, won't go into all of that, but you know, Welsh and Irish heritage, but because I come from these islands, and that's therefore my indigenous, I suppose, thing, I would say that even if you're going to do something that's going to give you kind of an altered state experience, and God knows you don't need to, you don't actually
need to do it. Yeah,
you don't actually need to do psychedelics for that. You can, you know, you can have a very delicious nettle soup and get a psychedelic experience. But anyway, my opinion is that, and I'm very opinionated, but my feeling is that you're probably better off doing mushrooms or something that's indigenous to these lands than you are to do something that's indigenous to, you know, the South American jungle, or to, you know, somewhere that is very different from our environment and our roots, because I think you're dealing with plant spirits that are very powerful, and that you need to have the wisdom of those indigenous roots to really negotiate and communicate with those plant spirits. And so I do feel for myself, I feel fairly clear about that. But I also do feel that because we tend not to value things that we perceive as weeds, you know, I mean, people kind of, oh God, don't get me started, you know, to see people spraying the hedgerows and cutting the hedgerows at the wrong time, and anyway, you know, just not caring because they see it as just untidy or weeds or whatever. But actually those plants are so full of power, so full of medicine, so full of wisdom and knowing how to be, that, you know, we don't need to kind of get out of our head. Well, we do need to get out of our heads, but not off our heads, if you know what I mean. We kind of need to get out of our heads in the sense that we're not always intellectualizing everything, that we can get back into feeling and just, you know, the sensuality of what it is to be in the body, and the pleasure of tasting and all of that. But yes, I think it can be a bit of a sort of shorthand. It's a bit like you know, you know what I mean. It can be a bit spiritual tourism-y stuff, you know. I'll just trawl this kind of pool here, and then I'll trawl over there, and you know what I mean. It's kind of a bit out. And I suspect, I'm sure, you know, and the trouble is, when I get onto this, I then think, gosh, you're being so judgmental, and I don't mean to do that. I really don't, actually, because everybody's experience is going to be different, and you can't judge where somebody's coming from. But for myself, anyway, I would rather engage with I would rather engage with the nettles, with the roses, with the dandelions, with the, with the plantain, with the daisies. I would rather engage in magic and wonder and astonishment with those beings than I would be in a hurry to go looking for a high, with something that was more alien to my nature, I suppose.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's what I feel as well. And it's, I think with like that's why I say in this medicine, the all plants are medicine, not just those, but like that term is used as plant medicine. And it's, I think people like to take the shortcuts, like to see something as one and maybe some kind of fixer. And here plants, I think they give in wisdom and contact with them and years of experience, and they really healing. And like you said, you can have a nettle soup, you can have I don't know, like I remember sometimes, I don't know what is that plant, it's in English, but if you have a cut, you just have like, there's that plant is growing everywhere, you just put that leaf of that on that cut and it healed and it didn't really get infected. But like people like to see, because that's what it is, and put the old pharmacology on top of that plant, okay, because it's like just antiseptic ingredients, but it's a small part of that plant, and of course we can extract it and use it, but it wouldn't be the same thing. The whole thing evolve, grow, and was just probably before us here, and we start to use it. So it's so much knowledge and beauty in this, and connection even on the physical level, even as a scientist. And it's not so, they may be more and more like a science behind it, of course it always exists, but it's always based on that disconnection. Now maybe they start to looking at that kind of more holistic way, which what I think what you said on the beginning, people looking for things they can use literally, and just separation, and really that's supposed to go on the other way, to connect with the old garden and with the bees and all that ecosystem of really small piece of land. Somebody see the grass, and really is one little world with bees, flowers, butterflies, and of course mushroom fungi, which are everywhere and life depend on them. So it's like, and we're part of it, and we're so disconnected from it, and it's so healing what you're actually saying. And to even in the city, I think you have a little herb garden or something like that, to have that connection, not just go if you can plant anything. I think it's always better because you have that connection. This is your tomatoes or your plant or something. I don't know, like I know I'm not sure you agree with me, but this is the way I see it also.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And the plant that you were thinking about is called plantain here. It's or ribwort. It's got kind of semi-parallel ribs at the back, which are kind of a fairly good indication of what you're looking at. It grows everywhere, and it's marvelous. And you can make a wonderful thing that children love doing, and I do really, because I'm a big child. You can make spit poultices with them. So you can just take one of those, if you cut yourself or graze your knee or hurt yourself, you can take a leaf of that and chew it with your spit, and then when it's chewed up into a mush, you pop it onto whatever it is that's hurting or sore or cut, and it will, not only will it will heal the cut, it'll stop bleeding, and it will also be very highly antiseptic. So there's a very, very unlikely, it's very unlikely that there'll be any infection, even if there's a bit of dirt in there or whatever. It's a most miraculous plant, and you're quite right, it's everywhere. And I believe that in the medieval times it was known as whey bread. And the reason it was known as whey bread was because it grew on all the old pathways, all the old tracks that people took, and it grew everywhere. So it was as valuable as bread because it was, you know, so healing. And also the seeds of the plantain are related to psyllium, which is psyllium husks. You may know, you get in the health, are really, really good for good bowel health and, you know, for keeping you regular and everything. And the psyllium is a good form of roughage of but the seeds of the plantain are actually a form of psyllium, and so they also could be taken, you know, ground and added to breads and so on. Be very, very nourishing and very good. So, you know, these plants are, you said, I totally agree with you, that taking an extract or a part of the kind of chemistry of a plant and saying, oh, this is the bit that, you know, does the particular healing task that we're looking for, I don't think that is anything like as effective as the whole plant, because if you take the whole plant, the body recognizes the whole plant as food rather than as medicine. And when we take something as food, the body receives it in a particularly easy way. I mean, this is assuming, obviously, we're not saying do not imbibe poisonous plants, because you similarly may take it in a very easy way. But assuming that you know what you're eating or taking, then if it's received by the body as food in a whole form, there's something very healthy about the way we can assimilate that in the systems. Whereas if we take something that's been, well, usually, unfortunately, it's also been synthesized. So not only have they kind of decided that XYZ chemical of this plant is what's the active ingredient, but also then not only do you not get that in plant form, you get it in a synthetic form, which is taking the same chemistry and making it out of petrochemicals, which is what drugs are, essentially. And that is really hard for the body to assimilate, because the body recognizes that as alien, which it is, of course. And so what happens is that immediately puts the immune system onto high alert, and we immediately try to eliminate it as quickly as possible. And one of the things that conventional medicine doesn't like about herbs is that if you're, let's say you're on a pharmaceutical drug for a particular reason, some of the herbs, if you take them, are so effective at eliminating alien substances from your body that they will actually play down and remove a lot of the pharmaceuticals, you see, from the body, and which, you know, may have good or bad effects. So, I mean, if you're on a pharmaceutical drug that you absolutely need in order to maintain, you know, your well-being, then that could be potentially very problematic. But I mean, it's the instinct of the plant is to try and bring you back into what you or I would see as into balance, into homeostasis, so that your body is flowing from its own natural place of harmony, and so that's the sort of instinct of the herb, if you like. It can work the other way with, you know, the famously in Ireland, you can't buy St. John's wort over the counter. I mean, as a herbalist, I can prescribe St. John's wort and I grow it and so on, but it's not available for the general public over the counter in the Republic of Ireland. It is in the north, because it became trendy to take it for forms of depression, which is not the main thing about St. John's wort, I have to say, but it does work on the nervous system. But but it isn't the main thing. Really, it's a marvelous herb for lots of things, pain relief, lots of things. But for people who were on particular types of antidepressants, I think the SSRIs,
Yes.
they, what it did is it actually pushed them a bit further, so that people were getting rather extreme reactions to the SSRIs. But of course, St. John's work was always blamed as being the problem, because what it did is it sort of amplified the effect of the SSRI. And as a herbalist, I have an opinion about that, which I probably won't make public right now. But you can
share it. You can share it.
Well, I mean, I just kind of quietly think to myself, which would I rather be on a pharmaceutical drug that has side effects that are sometimes very undesirable, or a very benign herb that that could actually enhance my mood and support my my nervous system and my well-being. I ask myself that question, and I have a fairly clear idea which route I would prefer to do. But I mean, again, it's horses for courses, and each to their own. But it's very interesting, this whole business about herbal extracts, as opposed to even if you just stick to the herbs, forgetting about pharmaceutical drugs. I do feel that extracts do not honor the whole of the plant, and because just because we don't know, you see, the trouble is there's an assumption that, oh well, we don't know what 80% of the plant does. We know it doesn't do us any harm, but we don't know what it does in a positive. We can't say, oh well, that does this, that does that. We only know that 20% of it is active in the way that we perceive things at the moment. That doesn't mean that it's just because we don't know. And of course, you have to be careful about that if there's any potential hazard involved. But if you're talking about, let's just say, nettles, which in my opinion are probably pretty much 100% safe to eat. Then or hawthorn or whatever. Anyway, if we're talking about those sort of simple plants, just because we don't know what every single aspect of the plant is doing doesn't mean it's not doing something really good. And because there's a sort of synergistic relationship between all aspects of the plant, just as there is with each one of us. It's a bit like saying, well, Sylwia, today I'm only going to talk to your left foot. I mean, it's bonkers, it's completely mad. It's like, we can't separate ourselves out from all that we are. Or, Sylwia, I'm only interested in, what you actually think about this. I'm not interested in how you respond or how you feel or anything else. I only want one very tight little area. And I don't think we were made to be separated out like that. I think that's it's Newtonian physics, isn't it? It's like, let's break everything down into little particles and, keep cutting it up and see what we discover. And I think we've learnt from modern physics, which most people don't really yet properly believe in. But we've learnt actually from modern physics that the more you cut it up, the less there is, in the sense that when you finally cut everything up, you realize that there's nothing there in the first place, except light. So it's like we can't keep cutting it up until we find the ultimate kind of alchemist's gold. It doesn't work like that. It's actually because we're constantly popping in and out of reality, in terms of this physical reality, where now you see us, now you don't, and it's this constant amazing manifestation, no manifestation, manifestation, no manifestation, so which in theory it means, magically speaking, we should in theory be able to transform everything in any moment. It's just that it's our solid beliefs in things that keep us in one place, that keep us sometimes keep us sick, or keep us constantly manifesting a problem. over and over again, which in theory, we shouldn't need to do. We apparently, I can't remember how long it is. I think it's about 7 months it takes to make an entirely new liver, cell by cell in your body. Well, in theory, if you've got a wonky liver, that should mean, okay, well, within 7 months, I should have a healthy liver. But it doesn't, because, of course, we're buying into the belief of this solid reality, and that's my liver's my liver, and it keeps on replicating itself. Exactly.
That's what people don't realize. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, and I haven't got the hang of it either. So I'm not saying that we can all miraculously change. I do believe we can, and sometimes we do, but it's a bit haphazard, to say the least, at the moment. But we're much more magical than we think we are, and I don't suppose it's, I suppose I mean, imagine a world where we were all free to be entirely what we're meant to be, and the magical, incredibly creative beings that we were born to be. We would be entirely unmanageable, which would be marvelous, in my opinion, but possibly from the point of view of world government, not marvelous, because we would be uncontrollable. But the potential is amazing, I think. So
yeah,
we're getting into metaphysics now. But anyway, but from there, that comes to me from engaging with plantain or nettle or rose. God love her, goddess love her, beautiful rose. Rose, which is truly the gift of the goddess, But that journey, in and out of manifestation, in and out of magic, is all part of that, and it can come to us from the most apparently humble, but actually utterly wise and magical places, like engaging, as you said, a tiny patch of ground. If you go and stand on a lawn like mine, which you can't really call a lawn, it's more like a meadow. But if you go and stand there and look between your feet, you will see probably at least 6 or 7 healing plants growing amongst that grass, just in that tiny area. So, it's a world within a world of wonder. And as you mentioned, the mushrooms, the mycelium, which is, that's like this magical internet beneath the surface of the ground, which is, talking to all the plants, all the trees, everything. If only we sort of just stop interfering, if only we'd stop trying, poisoning things with antifungals and, don't get me started. But, all of those things which interfere with this intricate web of life, which we're part of. It's just, and we are so much a part of it. And once we allow ourselves to surrender into that awareness of being part of it all, it's such a relief. It's like coming home, over and over again. It's such a relief.
Yeah,
and it's our heritage. It's our belonging. It's who we are.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree what you said before with the pharmaceutical. I think it's probably better than pharmacology if you have extract. But I think what you mean about extract is not like you make your own remedies. Sometimes you put alcohol to preserve it, to have it in the winter. It's just more that production of tablets. That's what you like. If they just take some herbs and they say, okay, we're gonna take that to the factory and make some herbal extract essences. So that's just to make it clear, because I think as well, it's like for generations, some people, preserve, but it's always all plant. I don't know, make the alcohol extracts, or need to mix it with oil and make all kind of remedies. That was the different things. That's just to put the clarity. That's what you said about the keeping the full
Yes.
plant, but the plant is there, you know, like even
Yes,
if you
yes.
make the remedies from it, the plant is there, all plant
Yes.
is there.
Oh yes, I think that's right, and it's really to just honor that. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. When I make medicine, you know, I know that sometimes what I want is the root, for example. I mean, let's look at dandelion. Dandelion root is wonderfully healing to the liver. Very, very good. It's bitter, and it's and when you know, it prepares a beautiful medicine that is, which I would, as you say, to preserve it, I would very possibly extract it in alcohol, although I often use apple cider vinegar as well, because that makes a beautiful, with particularly just because I'm talking about dandelion, particularly with dandelion root, makes a beautiful remedy. But the root is really good for the liver, and the leaves are really good for the kidneys.
Yeah.
And the urinary tract.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it makes you pee basically. But it also is very good, just very good for kidney urinary tract health. In France they call it pissenlit, which is, you know, pee the bed. But it because it encourages you to pee. And to actually, you know, cleanse the kidneys and so on. And so you have a plant there that both the leaves and the root are really good, and the flowers are really good too. The flowers can make the most beautiful ointment, which is extremely good for the skin. And the flowers make they actually make delicious parts of food. You can fry them and make fritters with them. You can make a beautiful oil with them. You can, I mean, every part of the dandelion is incredibly powerful and useful in different ways. And, you know, they are like the sun, aren't they? And then there's a lot of things that they've been going around on the internet lately, images of the dandelion, which, you know, incorporates all different kind of elements. You see the incredible seed heads, which are so beautiful, like stars, you know, and that have this ability to travel great distances. I mean, it's really, really hard to, thank goodness, it's really hard to eradicate dandelion, because and they'll grow, as you know, in the cracks of the concrete pavement. They'll grow anywhere.
They grow anywhere, exactly.
Yeah, they are so resilient, you know, and their roots go so deep that it's almost impossible to get all of the root out, and it'll keep regrowing. So the dandelion is a sort of hero of heroes of plants, you know, that just has a resilience and a power that is extraordinary. But every part of it is valuable. It's a bit like every part of humanity is valuable. You know, every part is like a part of some extraordinary whole being, you know. And it's true of all of nature. You know, it's true of everything. There's no separation, you know. If we really knew that, we couldn't harm anything. How could we? You know, because we're harming ourselves.
Exactly.
You know, we're just hurting ourselves every time. And yes.
Yeah, I think it's like we can probably talk forever. This is really a wonderful conversation, very close to my heart, but we almost getting there into an hour now. And yeah, time is flying, isn't it?
Oh, Sylwia, it's been such a joy. I'm sorry, I've just shit on about it, but yeah, I think it's all about love in the end. I mean, you know,
exactly.
It's all about love.
Exactly.
There's really, in the end, there's nothing else that matters. You know.
So, Jacquie, thank you very much. And maybe in the end, you just tell us where we can find you and your wonderful medicines from your beautiful garden. Can we buy them or just order them? Or is this just for you? And how you basically share which is it social media or maybe website?
I'm on Facebook quite a lot, actually. I rather enjoy my little corner of Facebook. But I live in Tullow, in County Carlow. I see people privately for consultations. I teach a little bit online for some dear friends who have a beautiful herb school where they're training herbalists, and I do a bit of teaching. And I also hold days, which I usually advertise on Facebook, but people can contact me at, they can go look up JacquieBurgess.net on the internet, on my website, JacquieBurgess.net. Jacquie, JacquieBurgess, where I would try and keep it up to date with days that I do here, which are introducing people to the herbs, doing foraging where we make medicine and food, really importantly, delicious food, with foraged plants in and around the garden, and really so that people can realize how easy and delicious and good it can be to reconnect with our wild plants, and and teach them to identify them correctly and all of that. So I do a combination of that. So days, and I do other things as well. I do meditation and the wheel of the year and honoring the seasons and all of that. But for the plants, yes. Okay. So there's a day every so often where people can come and make medicine and make food and make cosmetics as well. They'll get me on my website or look for me on Facebook. And they can come to me privately if they want to as well for consultations.
They want to. Yeah, we're gonna put all that links under the interview. So the interview will be first on Radio Cenzura, and then we'll put that interview on Radio Cenzura YouTube channel. So there will be all the information with all the links. You can check it out. And thank you very much, Jacquie, for the wonderful conversation. And this was Sylwia and Kaleidoscope of Inspiration for Radio Cenzura. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Radio Cenzura. Twoja ulubiona muzyka bez cenzury.